Okay, my friends, I'm going to try to explain Republican foreign policy, how Republicans are thinking about foreign policy now. And I'm a Republican, but I'm not a MAGA Republican, but I can still kind of understand what they're doing. And I was watching the convention, the Republican convention last night. I was listening very, very carefully to what was being said. And the question is, how would a Trump reelection affect Ukraine? I think it's not hard to say that it seems like a Biden would be a better. The odds are Biden would be better for Ukraine than Trump. Now, with that caveat being said, let me try to unpack what I see. Okay, so the odds are it'll be worse for Ukraine with Republicans. Now, I know that if you're on the left, you would also think something like Trump is Putin's puppet, but Republicans don't see it that way. They don't think that way at all. And when you say that, it's just like it's almost like gibberish to them. Republicans just don't think like that. So last night, Nikki Haley is speaking at the convention, and I'm listening very, very carefully. She was giving a unity speech, the basic unity, we got to pull together because Biden is bad kind of speech. And in about a month, the Democrats will have those kind of speeches. We've got to pull together because the Republicans are bad. That's a normal kind of thing for a political party convention. And then she said, now, I acknowledge that there are some who do not agree with Trump, and of course everybody knew that she didn't, 100% of the time. Okay, good, but she's then calling for unity, and that's what political parties tend to do, and so that's normal. Now then she went on and she said this, and I thought it was really, really interesting that she would talk like this. With Barack Obama, Putin invaded Crimea, and then she went on and said with Biden, Putin invaded all of Ukraine. And then she went on and said, this was no accident. And then she said this, and I'm quoting now, Putin didn't attack because he knew Trump was tough. Now, I know that you're probably choking right now if you're on the political left because you don't think like that at all, but that's how Republicans tend to think about that there was no war because Putin wouldn't have messed with Trump. I'm promising you that Republicans do think that way. She went on and said this, a strong president doesn't start wars, a strong president prevents wars. Okay, and again, that was a quote. Now, what she didn't say was what I was hoping that she would say, which would be like, what do you do now that the war has already started? She didn't go into what you'll do now. Now, there was a continual refrain from other speakers that would say things like allies need to pay their fair share or no new wars, but they didn't say things like we support Russia or Ukraine is terrible or Ukraine deserves to lose. Now, I know there's a wingnuts like Marjorie Taylor Greene and that kind of thing, but you didn't see that kind of thing with the exception of talking points being repeated by David Sachs and others. And that's unfortunate. They should never have put David Sachs up there. There's a leadership within the party that thought that putting David Sachs up there was a good idea, and it really wasn't. Okay, so tonight, J.D. Vance will be speaking, and J.D. Vance's appointment is saddening too, because I don't think he's very, like, if they had picked a Tim Scott or a Nikki Haley or somebody like that, I would think like, okay, we have a real shot at getting our foreign policy straight. With J.D. Vance, I think it's more of the same MAGA kind of not really paying attention to Ukraine or not being interested. But that's not the same as saying they need to lose or that kind of thing. It's a very low priority, unfortunately. Okay, so J.D. Vance, he has in the past said things like, we can't do everything, we can't pay everybody's bill, we're not the world police, and that's in line with the isolationist kind of strain within the Republican Party that's there right now. He has said all kinds of things like that. But that's not the same as if he were saying something like, we want Ukraine to lose. Now, Tucker Carlson came right out and said, I'm rooting for Russia. But he's not actually a representative or a senator or a governor or anything along those lines. But he's openly rooting for it, as is some folks within Heritage. And that's unfortunate as well. Okay. So it was poor judgment putting David Sachs up, but there's a quote today I saw and I thought it was fascinating. David Sachs said, some people clapped. Like, how pathetic is that? He's, a speaker at the convention, and there was like, when you watched him speak, like nobody was interested in him speaking about what he was speaking about with like his foreign policy talking points. But he's one of the big isolationists, and he's a money guy in isolationism land, and that's what's really important there. Like that's why his voice is being heard. Okay, so again, it was poor judgment. Now, there's a dilemma here. And I think that this is legitimate, but I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about this because, again, I'm a Republican and I see things through a certain Republican worldview filter, and you'll see things differently. But consider what I'm saying and then react to it and tell me what you think. Okay, so with Biden, we know what we're getting. Biden is willing to grant aid, but Biden will then slow walk that aid to Ukraine. We won't get it there in any timely fashion. It'll take a long time. And then there are restrictions that come with that aid because Biden's knee-jerk reaction to things is to not escalate or not provoke Putin, as if somehow it was the U.S. that provoked Putin, and we just don't want to do that. We better not do more of that. So I think that's where we are with Biden. Now with Trump, and again, it's a wild card with Trump, I think the Republicans won't grant the aid, but if they were to grant the aid or if they were to sell the aid, I mean, if you were selling it, they'd probably be pretty fine with that, I think. I don't think that they are Putin puppets. I don't think that it's a legitimate way of interpreting how Republicans actually are. But if they were to sell aid, I think they would be more than fine with, well, what you do with your aid once you get it is up to you. I mean, they're not worried about I don't want to escalate and have Putin mad at me. They don't tend to think in those kind of categories. So I think that that's where we are. So it's a kind of a darned if you do, darned if you don't kind of scenario where, Biden will give it, but then with significant restrictions and it'll take forever. And Republicans won't give it. But if they were to give or sell it, I think you might get to a place where they're like, sure, use it however you want. Okay, last little bit I want to talk to is I saw this picture of Boris Johnson and Trump together. And I saw them together and the comments, so I saw comments from some people that were saying like, here are the two worst dictators ever. Okay, I understand there's like a post-truth problem with both of these guys. But Anton Gurashenko's comment was actually really interesting and insightful. He said, good news. What? Good news? Why would it be good news? Because to whatever degree Boris Johnson, who for all his flaws is all in support of Ukraine, to whatever degree Boris Johnson can influence Trump, that's a positive thing. And look, I'm not trying to cause you to go vote for Trump. Vote for who you think is going to be best. I don't think that Trump is going to be as healthy for Ukraine as Biden. I think Biden is minimally healthy for Ukraine, but Trump is really a wild card. So I'm not trying to do that. I am saying, here's how Republicans think, and here's what I think you can expect. Listen really closely to J.D. Vance's speech tonight and see if he says the things that I was talking about. We can't be the world's police. We don't have the money, the resources to do everything. Got to keep our eye on China. But he's not going to say and come right out and say, Ukraine bad, Russia good, or something like that, unless I'm mistaken. Okay, then we have a whole different problem set. Okay, thank you for hearing me, and tell me what you think in the comments below. Thank you for the time and the comments and the likes and the shares and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.